They believe. Do you? The Golden State Warriors.
Apparently I don't, because I just bet T-shirts versus Lumpia.
But we're just trying to set things up for some fun with one of our best listeners, Pons. And so we'll do that.
They can still win it all from the 7 or 8 seed.
I don't think believing in them automatically means 6 seed. They could play great. They could go 20-9 in that final 29 and still end up the 7 seed.
Yeah,
that's totally possible. So both things can be true. Check this out though. February is going to come to a close here soon, right? The Warriors have a few more games in the month of February. Listen to this. This is courtesy of Danny Emmerman, who writes for the Merc. In February, these are all rankings for the Warriors, okay? Their win percentage is .800, okay? That is 4th in the NBA. Their offensive rating is 3rd. Their defensive rating is 7th. 125.7 points per game. That is 1st. 50.3 rebounds per game. That is 1st. 31.7 assists per game. That is 1st. Like, whoa.
Yeah.
I know that they've won 9 of 11, and so it's not news to say that they're playing better, but when you start looking at ratings like that, and as Chris, the first thing he said when he joined us today, and Chris Mannix, YouTube or the Odyssey app, if you missed it, if you're a Warrior fan, you should definitely go hear it. The first thing he said, the sample size is getting bigger. It's getting bigger real fast. And so have the Warriors figured something out? Andrew Wiggins thinks so. They believe. Do you? Let's go to Gloria in the city. Hey, Gloria, what's up? You're on Willie and Dibby.
Hey, Willie and Dibby, thank you for taking my call. I believe those stats you just read off are fantastic. That's effort and the will to want to do it. I believe in the youth. They have an assembly of youth that will mesh well with the veterans. I have a manifestation that Klay Thompson is going to excel coming off the bench. And he's going to have one of those breakout games. Like, he played like 29, 30 minutes last night, and he came off the bench. And he had that many minutes. So he didn't have a great game, but he had great assists. He got others involved. I think that the Warriors can make that 6th seed. And even if they didn't, they will not fall under the 7th seed. I believe, gentlemen. Thank you.
Gloria, thank you.
I love it.
That's pretty good. That's getting loose on the Warriors situation. Chris mentioned something else. I don't know how this whole thing will shake out. But yeah, I think, did he call it an NBA wet dream? The Western Conference play-in tournament right now.
The 7 through 10 would be
ludicrous. Can you imagine these games with the urgency that would be attached to them? Like, Dallas has actually moved out of it. They've got the tiebreaker on the Suns. So right now it's the Suns at 7, the Kings at 8, the Lakers at 9, and the Warriors at 10. Dude, forget the top 6. I want to watch that.
Right.
I don't care about the other New Orleans. Get out of here. That would be intense, maybe too intense.
Yeah, one and done scenario. The Warriors at the Crypt against LeBron in a rematch spot from last year's postseason. The Adorables in the desert taking on KD, Booker, and company. And if the Warriors beat the Lakers, they would either get Phoenix or get the Sacramento Adorables in a second play-in game. That is an absolute NBA dream.
But also terrifying. You know, like you got to win one of those basketball games. Look, the standings,
and that's where getting to the 8 is so important, because then you have a little bit of a buffer.
For sure. And the Warriors are already ahead of the Lakers in the loss column, right? The Lakers have played a lot more games than the Warriors. The Warriors had that break because of the tragedy. And so right now the loss column is definitely worth looking at, because if you look at the 5 and the 6 seed, you're like, whoa, the Warriors are like 5 or 6 games out here. And sure, it's not that that's not true. That's mathematics. But if you look at the loss column, the Pelicans at 22, the Mavericks, Suns, and Kings all at 23. And then next is the Warriors at 26. They're right there. They're just 3 back in the loss column from that whole group that's at 23, including the team that's in the 6th seed. So, it's not, they're going to have to play very well. They're going to have to be blessed with health. We talked earlier about the schedule.
Yeah.
It is the 3rd easiest schedule in the NBA the rest of the way. I'm going to go out on a crazy limb. They're going to win tonight. And that's going to push them even further up the standings. And the 6th seed is not out of the question at all.
No.
It's not even close to crazy.
It depends on how you would do against some of the really good teams, the world beaters, and you do have Denver coming in. Denver's at Portland tonight, then Denver comes in Sunday. If you're going to beat the Nuggets in the regular season, that's probably your best chance of the 3 games that you have against them.
I don't know. Didn't you feel like they had them? They had them
Definitely.
both the 2 times that they played them. They had them.
The Joker hits a 40-foot bank shot to beat you.
I don't look at Sunday as a should lose.
No, of course not.
Beat Charlotte tonight. Take a day off. Play the way you've played against Denver this year. You win that game.
Play how you've played in February,
Yes.
and you laid out great metrics, and they're 8-2 in February. And the other piece of this, and credit needs to be given to Draymond Green, they're 10-5 since he came back, and they are +8 in point differential since he came back. So he definitely is a key to unlocking a lot of things. The Wiggins-Kuminga pairing is no longer an issue since Draymond came back, and they have absolutely rolled since he returned to the team.
Okay, I want to point something else out too, and I know this is going to sound like woulda, coulda, shoulda. That's not what I mean. Lots of NBA games are close. But I think also important to point out when you look at this winning streak that they are on, yes, it is 9 of the last 11, but go back to just simply once they started playing basketball again after the tragedy involving Coach Decky. Let's go back to that moment. They returned to play on Wednesday, January 24th, and they blow out the Atlanta Hawks at Chase Center. Since then, they have lost 4 basketball games. That's it. By 1 flipping point to the Kings. In double overtime by 1 point to the Los Angeles Lakers. In overtime to the Atlanta Hawks when Steph scored 60. And then a 5-point loss to the Clippers.
A collapse.
Where you were completely up by 15. You had that game.
Yeah.
So now granted, you can always look at that through the opposite lens. You beat Phoenix because Steph hit a miracle.
You beat Philly because they didn't have Embiid twice.
Sure. You played the Lakers without LeBron. And yes, there were plenty of cupcakes all over the schedule. You got Memphis. You've got a couple of Utahs.
But a win against Indiana at the end of a road trip on the second half of a back-to-back.
On the road. Did Halliburton play?
Yeah.
He did?
Yeah, he did.
That's right, he did. He had
a very quiet game.
Yeah. So if you just look at the Warriors from that moment, and I think that's 11, I think it's 14 games.
10-4.
And they're 10-4, but you're like, dude, you're a nose hair away from being 14-0.
Right.
Like you have, and I don't even look at it that way. Forget the record, because they were nose hair away from losing some of these that they won. Yep. But they've just been playing really good basketball.
Yeah.
Especially on the offensive end. I would say at the beginning of this run, games like that, the Kings, the Lakers, that loss at the Hawks where Steph scored 60, your defense was still shoddy, but that's what's now turned the corner. That 14-game stretch, man, they've been a good basketball team.
Right.
Really good.
Well, the loss to the Clippers was, 3 quarters of fantastic and 1 quarter of just terrible.
Totally.
And, the other losses, like you mentioned, 1 point, 7 points, 2 overtime losses. You've been right in there, and it just looks better. Even if you didn't have a scoreboard, watching them play, they're playing harder, they're turning it over less, they're rebounding better. Things look to be a lot more cohesive. Pods in the starting lineup is a win. If Clay can continue to be a 6-man who embraces the role, and you look at the schedule, you mentioned a lot of the cupcakes that are coming up, you feel like this team can put together a good run, and and at least make a push for the 6.
There's no doubt. I mean, what I look for, and it does not exist the rest of the way, what I look for is like a gauntlet. Do the Warriors have any more gauntlets on the schedule? Let me go ahead and look ahead for you and tell you. The answer is no. No. They get tough games here and there.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about, do you have one of those road trips that's like 3 or 4 games against nothing but good teams? No. Look at next week. Next week, you're going to go to Washington. You should win that game. Then you're going to go to New York. We'll see. You go to Toronto. You should win that game. And then you're going to go to Boston. That's going to be hard. It doesn't mean you can't win them, and it doesn't mean you can't blow a game you should win. But I look at that road trip, and I kind of think the baseline is 2-2.
Sure.
2-2. You come back home, you do your thing. You've got the Bulls and Spurs coming to town. Giannis too. But again, you hit the road again. There's San Antonio. There's Dallas. There's the Lakers in there. Although you get a really good break, you get 2 nights off after Dallas and the Lakers. Then you're home again with some more cakes coming to town. Couple tough games here and there. The hardest thing that they've got to do left, I would argue,
I see it. Yeah,
is a trip from March 26th to March 31st. You have a back-to-back in Miami and Orlando. But then
it starts with a trip to Minnesota, Mark.
And, right.
The front end of that.
The front end of that. That's the hardest stretch in 4 nights at Minnesota, at Miami, at Orlando.
Well, you got 5 and 8 too.
Right.
So even the back end of that is not.
But the back end of the trip is Charlotte and the Spurs.
Right, but still those are road games.
Yeah.
And, when you're at the end of a road trip, like that San Antonio game, that'll be the 3rd time you've played San Antonio in March. And if you're going to lose one of the 3, I'm not saying you will, that's the most losable of the 3 in my opinion.
Totally.
The last game of a 5-game trip when you've got 5 games in 8 nights, that's difficult no matter who the opponent is. But to your point, that is the most gauntlet-y thing that's remaining on this schedule.
That's it. Like every time they've got a tough game, they squeeze in
some cake.
Some cake. There's the middle of the cake. There's some frosting in there.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. They play Dallas on April 2nd. They play them again on April 5th. Yeah, they get Houston in between. Get a little Houston in there.
Yeah,
and then they're gonna have to go play the Lakers. But first they get Utah,
and then Portland on the back end.
And then they get Portland. Then they got to play New Orleans, and then they get Utah again. It's just like. And again, I know we don't know health, and so we can't assume that just because it's a bad team, the Warriors are going to beat them. But probably, I honestly, you look at where they are, they're 28 and 26. I think that it's absolutely an easy run to 42 wins.
Oh, I was going to say 45.
Right. But I'm talking easy, like layup to a 42 and 40 record.
That's 14 and 14.
Right. You can go up from there. I have zero doubt. So if you can even just, you tuck into some of these, you got Dallas 3 times. Can you get 1 or 2 of those? You got the Lakers a couple of times. You're going to get maybe 1 of those. You do that back-to-back in Miami and Orlando. Do you just get 1 of those? If you just grab 3, 4, 5 of those suckers, boom, there's the goal. There's your 48 wins. 47, 48 wins, whatever. Does that get you the 6? I don't know.
Maybe.
But
48, you're sniffing the 6.
It's going to get you 7.
Right.
It's going to get you home court for the play-in. And right now, I know that's not the stated goal. Steve Kerr had apparently a speech for the Warriors last night before the game. And some of the guys reported that it was a pretty good one. And the stated goal is the 6 seed. The stated goal is avoid the play-in.
Yeah.
And they can do it, but if they don't, I think right now, I'd be shocked if they're not 7 or 8 at worst.
If you win 49 games, and literally 49.2 wins is a 600 winning percentage. So for the sake of the discussion, let's just put it at 49, which would be a winning percentage of about 595. And right now, if you had that winning percentage, you'd be the 6 because the Mavericks are at 589. 589 pencils out to be 48 wins. So could 48 wins be good enough for the 6? It might be. It'd be close, and that would mean you wound up the year from here going 20 and 8 the rest of the way. Can you go 20 and 8?
Yeah,
I think you can.
Maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
You can't afford any spit ups.
I'd kind of be surprised if they weren't at least 18 and 10. That's
Yeah.
kind of, for me, that's a little bit of like that. That's kind of a nice par.
18 and 10, you're a 7 or an 8,
Yeah.
I would say.
Right.
46 wins get you the 7 or the
Yeah.
8.